Thanks for being with us on WGBH's Morning Edition. I'm Joe Matthew. Colleges and universities continue to alter or reverse their plans for fall classes. Those campuses still planning to reopen are requiring students sign either letters acknowledging risk or waivers agreeing not to sue if they contract the virus. From our higher ed desk, WGBH Radio's Kirk Carapezza reports these documents could change the relationship between students and colleges.
Bates College in southern Maine is preparing to welcome back about 90% of its 1,800 students, encouraging them to get tested for COVID before traveling to the Lewiston campus, to avoid parties, and then to sign what the liberal arts school is calling a public health agreement.
We are having to make, like any other college university across this country, fundamental changes to how we operate.
That's Dean of Students Joshua McIntosh. He says before students return to campus, he's telling them it's critical that they all understand the risk and shared responsibility in stopping the spread of this virus.
Not just that Bates has to make a set of kind of environmental, administrative, educational changes, but you play a critical role in this as well.
McIntosh insists the intent of this agreement is not to discharge Bates from any legal claims,
which is what a waiver would do, but really was more an educational approach.
Even before the pandemic, with costs soaring and families demanding a measurable return on their investment, American higher education had grown increasingly transactional. The pay-to-play varsity blues scandal was dominating headlines. Then COVID came to campus, and in the spring, we saw a wave of lawsuits demanding tuition refunds after colleges abruptly moved their classes online. Now, with millions of students set to return to campus for the fall semester, most colleges are asking that they sign some kind of compact or waiver agreeing not to sue if they contract the virus.
One should not overstate the usefulness of these things.
Frederick Lawrence is the former president of Brandeis University and a current lecturer at Georgetown. He compares these agreements to those signs you see hanging in restaurant coat check rooms that say, "We are not responsible for anything that you leave here."
If there's nobody there and you leave an object there and it gets taken, they're right. They're not responsible. But if there's somebody there and you hand it to somebody and then that person doesn't do what that person's supposed to do, they're still negligent. So the fact that you sign some kind of a waiver is not necessarily binding.
And even if it were binding, Lawrence says the idea is ultimately misguided.
When you think about a college or a university, yes, in part it's a big organization just like any other business, but it's different in very substantial ways.
At Bates in Maine, some students have described the public health agreement's language as ruthless and cold. What would you say to those who see these forms as transactional?
I don't view educating our students and our families about important changes to their education as transactional.
Again, Bates Dean of Students Joshua McIntosh.
If students and families showed up at Bates without any of this information and without having to, in some ways, be required to read it, I think we'd be setting up for a great deal of disappointment and frustration.
Frustration is growing on the Boston University campus, which is planning to reopen later this month. The largest private college in New England is asking students like PhD candidate Ian Chandler from Dallas to sign an agreement in order to stay on campus this fall.
It looks okay on the surface, but it says at the very bottom, "I understand based on public health circumstances, university guidance and protocols may change, potentially abruptly. I will keep informed and follow all guidance and protocols."
During the pandemic, Chandler says he and other graduate students who also teach feel unheard and unsafe, and they've lost trust in the institution.
The less cynical of us always viewed universities on a higher moral ground than, say, a business. But it's become very clear that it's all about the money.
And with this public health agreement, Chandler says BU administrators are shirking their responsibility. BU says decisions have been based on public health and the safety of the campus community. Kirk Carapezza, WGBH, Boston's local NPR.
The story was edited by Sean Corcoran. Our higher education reports are a collaboration with the Forum for the Future of Higher Education and made possible with support from Lumina Foundation and the Davis Educational Foundation.